This episode is undoubtedly the most thrilling and exciting one in Spartacus, Blood and Sand, as Spartacus and Crixus are about to join forces to battle the undefeated god, Theokoles. In the series, the moment the gates of the arena open, an overwhelming and suffocating pressure hits everyone. The originally clear sky was suddenly covered in dark clouds, and the arena, which had gathered tens of thousands of spectators, was plunged into deathly silence. With a roar from Theokoles, the atmosphere in the venue is reignited. Upon Caladius's command, a battle of epic proportions officially begins. Under their fierce attack, Theokoles gradually falls into disadvantage, and Crixus seizes the opportunity to slash open his belly. Taking advantage of their victory, they attack from both sides effortlessly, flipping Theokoles to the ground. With a heavy fall, the once invincible Theokoles no longer has the strength to struggle. Spartacus and Crixus exchange glances, unable to believe that the legendary undefeated warrior is so easily defeated. They remove their helmets, laugh heartily, and are greeted with thunderous cheers and shouts. However, just when Spartacus and Crixus are caught up in their triumph, the scene suddenly falls silent again. Unbelievably, the severely wounded Theokoles on the ground miraculously revives. Theokoles, raising his swords high, brings about a sky filled with dark clouds and thunder and lightning. They never imagined that their joint effort against Theokoles would be regarded as mere warm-up by him. Next, they witness Theokoles' true strength. With a powerful blow, Theokoles knocks down both Spartacus and Crixus. However, at this moment, Crixus still harbors resentment towards Spartacus. Finding him an obstruction, Crixus, going solo, charges at Theokoles and seizes the opportunity to stab him in the belly. But Theokoles, seemingly immortal, feels no pain and headbutts Crixus, leaving him dizzy and disoriented. Theokoles' earlier skirmish was merely to entertain the audience. Once he's had enough fun, he eagerly prepares to decapitate both of them. Theokoles drew his longsword from his stomach and slashed Crixus twice, sending him to the ground in a bloody heap. This scene leaves Lucretia and Naevia on the platform in deep sorrow. Just as Theokoles is about to finish Crixus, Spartacus, stepping on a shield, leaps up and re-engages in battle with Theokoles. Seeing Spartacus gradually losing, Crixus, with his last bit of strength, picks up a metal helmet from the ground and reflects the sunlight into Theokoles' eyes. Seizing this opportunity, Spartacus rolls over, picks up a long sword, and fiercely slides towards Theokoles' waist. Then, with all his might, Spartacus chops towards Theokoles' neck. Worried about any unexpected changes, Spartacus does not hesitate and cleanly beheads Theokoles.
Yes!
Thus, the undefeated legend of Theokoles finally falls. As Theokoles falls, a torrential downpour suddenly begins, bringing long-awaited rain to the drought-stricken Capua. While everyone is basking in the joy of the rain, only Naevia and Lucretia remain concerned about the uncertain fate of Crixus. From this moment, Spartacus, once scorned, officially takes Crixus' place. After this battle, Spartacus not only becomes famous, but his reputation also brings new life to the Betrayal family's training camp.
The Slayer of the Shadow of Death! The new champion of Capua! Spartacus!
At the same time, Betrayal brings Spartacus tremendously good news. It turns out that after days of searching, he has rescued Sura from a Syrian merchant. He has ordered his men to travel day and night on the road, and if all goes well, Spartacus will be able to see his wife again in just 2 days.
You are an honorable man, and will forever bear my gratitude.
As you bear mine. Being reunited with your wife is but the first of many rewards.
As a reward, Betrayal has also prepared a private room for him, just as Spartacus is looking forward to reuniting with Sura. An offhand remark from the trainer Enemaus plunges Spartacus' heart back into despair.
You misunderstand. This cell is for you alone. Wives are not permitted to live among us.
Then where will she stay?
In the villa. Kept safe and well in return for good service to the Domina.
This means that although they can meet briefly, the couple will remain slaves to Betrayal for life. After all, with Spartacus's rising star, Betrayal would never let go of this money-making opportunity. From this moment, a plan to escape starts to quietly take root in Spartacus's mind. He intends to take his wife and flee, in pursuit of the freedom they've both longed for. Crixus is critically injured, hanging by a thread, but Spartacus, as his brother-in-arms, presses his fingers harshly into his wound. Spartacus does this solely to obtain the nearby anesthetic. Thinking it was a coughing fit that caused the wound to tear, the doctor told Spartacus to hand him the anesthetic and stitch him back up. Meanwhile, Spartacus discreetly sprinkles a small amount into the wine already prepared. No one would expect that Spartacus is about to use this wine to execute his grand escape plan. This is a gladiator training camp built atop a cliff. The slave master Betrayal buys slaves and trains them into gladiators, then sends them to the arena for the nobles' amusement, reaping enormous profits. Under heavy guard, it seems almost impossible for the slaves to escape the camp, but for the long-sought freedom, Spartacus decides to take the risk. He shares his escape plan with his friend Varro. Varro warns Spartacus not to be delusional, as in the hundreds of years since the camp's establishment, no slave has ever successfully escaped, but Spartacus's determination is unwavering. After all, defeating Theokoles was also considered impossible, but now Theokoles lies defeated by his sword. Spartacus tells Varro that once Sura arrives at the camp in 2 days, he will kill all the guards and flee with his wife. Varro scoffs at this reckless plan. The weapons in the training ground are locked away, and the slaves have no access to them. Even if Spartacus gets a weapon and kills the guards, without horses for the getaway, he would soon be recaptured. But Spartacus is confident, because Sura will come in a carriage in 2 days. There's no need to worry about horses.
Weapons, horses, they're the least of your concerns.
And the greatest?
The one man that could stop you.
Varro refers to the camp's trainer, Enemaus, whose combat skills far exceed those of Spartacus. Brainwashed over time, Enemaus sees training gladiators as a great honor and would never stand by if they tried to escape. Despite the challenges, there are still 2 days to prepare for the escape. The camp is currently immersed in the joy of Spartacus's victory over Theokoles. As a reward, Betrayal has specially made a suit of armor for Spartacus, ensuring his invincibility in future duels. Spartacus, struck with inspiration, proposes to wear this armor to welcome his wife's arrival the day after tomorrow.
Man must always appear his best in the eyes of love. You may wear it. I will even stand by your side while you welcome her with your open arms. The swords, however.
Indeed, what I have of them.
Coincidentally, Caladius's son Numerius, who greatly admires Spartacus, asks him to teach him swordsmanship. However, when Numerius removes his belt, Spartacus notices the dagger attached to it. After the sword lesson, Spartacus pretends to hand the belt back to Numerius, secretly sliding the dagger into his sleeve. With the equipment gathered, the next step is to deal with trainer Enemaus. Spartacus suggests to Betrayal that he wants to use all his winnings to buy fine wine and women to reward the gladiators of the camp.
A noble gesture, to be much appreciated.
You pay with your own coin, yet their happiness is a benefit to me. Very well, let it be done.
Marcellus is of sound choice towards the vice. Should I make arrangement?
See that there's ample remainder.
Everything is ready, just waiting for the right moment. During the celebration feast that night, the gladiators all drank themselves into a stupor, with the scene being lively and colorful. Some of the guards were also so drunk they couldn't find their way. However, Enemaus, a man of strict self-discipline, had no interest in such debauchery. At that moment, Spartacus remembered Crixus, who was still unconscious. Varro told Spartacus that Crixus was hanging by a thread, surviving only on the doctor's medicine. Seemingly struck with an idea, Spartacus immediately took 2 cups of wine into Crixus's room. He then quietly added a pinch of anesthetic powder to the wine while the doctor was distracted. Spartacus's goal was to use the anesthetized wine to put Enemaus into a deep sleep.
I bring cups, full of celebration.
I honor your victory. With prayer.
Your instruction made possible reunion with my wife. I would raise cups in gratitude.
The sentiment is well received. But wine has not passed my lips for many years.
Spartacus was out of options, but as he turned to leave, Enemaus suddenly called out to him. Although Enemaus had abstained from alcohol for many years, he was willing to make an exception to celebrate Spartacus's reunion with his wife. A few hours later, all the gladiators in the training camp were passed out drunk. Varro again urged Spartacus to think carefully, as even if he could ride out of the gate, the guards would pursue him with all their might. On Roman territory, where slave masters and nobility colluded, it was delusional for a slave to think of escaping back to his homeland, but Spartacus had already thought of the ultimate strategy. He would take Batiatus hostage and release him only after safely reaching the Thracians' tribe.
I will release him when we are in the cover of the mountains.
Spartacus! Your wife's cart appears on the road. I'll be with you presently.
I urge you to reconsider one last time. Sora will be free. In this life, or the one after. With her husband by her side. May the gods see you both upon the plains of Thrace.
Spartacus returned to his room, donned his armor, and concealed the dagger in his sleeve. After half a year, he finally saw the carriage carrying his wife enter the courtyard. Batiatus approached, seemingly wanting to talk to the coachman. Spartacus also approached the carriage, knowing everything hinged on this moment. Unexpectedly, Enemaus woke up prematurely. Seeing Spartacus approach Batiatus, he guessed Spartacus's intention to escape with Sura. Meanwhile, Spartacus had already drawn his dagger, but at that moment, he shockingly discovered the coachman covered in blood.
Out of nowhere, on the road. They attacked. They attacked. On the road.
Realizing something was terribly wrong, Spartacus hurried to the back of the carriage. When the door opened, he was completely dumbstruck. Spartacus held his wife's corpse, never imagining that when he saw his dearly missed wife again, it would be in this tragic scene. Spartacus was engulfed in grief. However, as a slave, he couldn't even leave the gladiator training camp, let alone seek revenge for his wife. In stark contrast was Batiatus's sinister and cunning smirk. Batiatus, well aware that Spartacus is the key to his wealth, would never sincerely bring Sura, as that would only lead Spartacus to indulge in the pleasures of love. Batiatus aimed to crush Spartacus's hopes, making him a resigned tool to work for him. However, Spartacus was completely in the dark about all of this, never guessing that it was Batiatus who had arranged for his wife to be ambushed and killed on the road. Batiatus arranged a funeral for Sura. Spartacus took down the cloth strip and placed it in his wife's hands, secretly vowing in his heart to become stronger and to exact blood vengeance on the murderer. Batiatus came to comfort Spartacus with feigned sympathy, expressing regret that he hadn't sent more guards to protect his wife. At this time, Spartacus was unaware of the truth and blamed everything on Glaber, the initiator, since it was Glaber who had turned Sura into a slave. However, Spartacus could never have imagined that the whole affair was orchestrated by Batiatus to keep Spartacus forever at his service. Batiatus had arranged for the coachman to find Sura and then ordered him to kill her on the road. Lucretia couldn't understand what her husband was thinking, why he would spend so much money on an act just to bring back Sura's body. Proudly, Batiatus explained that Spartacus treasured his wife above all and loved her unconditionally. If Spartacus believed Sura died elsewhere, he would be restless and seek revenge rather than train. The best way, then, was to let Spartacus witness his wife's tragic death in front of him. Meanwhile, Batiatus revealed his grand plan.
He has already defeated Theokoles. Imagine what he will accomplish once his mind has been focused on nothing but victory.
You will become the greatest Lannister in the Republic.
And on such a title, we will climb beyond our station, beyond Capua. Perhaps to the very steps of the Senate itself.
Spartacus, unaware of this, is still lost in his thoughts of Sura. Varro, as always, stayed by Spartacus's side. He warned Spartacus not to keep the dagger, as discovery by the guards could lead to dire consequences. But Spartacus didn't care. Since Sura's death, he had become indifferent to everything. On the training ground, Enemaus confronted Spartacus, having discovered his escape plan, but Enemaus was kind-hearted and didn't tell Batiatus. Instead, he advised Spartacus to be honest and live quietly as a gladiator.
Then bite your lips and see it done!
Next time you seek escape, you'd best kill me.
At the same time, since Spartacus became famous, nobles continuously sought out Batiatus for collaborations. Mercato's grandfather was a famous Roman general who had defeated the Thracians. To honor his grandfather, Mercato wanted Spartacus to play his valiant ancestor in the arena. leading 4 gladiators against 6 prisoners playing Thracians. Faced with a lucrative reward, Betrayal agreed without a second thought. But Spartacus, upon hearing this news, was infuriated. Already humiliated by being captured and enslaved by the Romans, he now faced the indignity of being forced to kill his own people. Spartacus outright refused this absurd duel. Clearly, Spartacus had not yet fully accepted his status as a slave. Varro urged Spartacus to face reality, telling him he was no longer a Thracian but a slave. Even if his master ordered him to die, he should not utter a word of refusal. But the always proud Spartacus was not willing to accept his fate. One day, Spartacus saw Aeneas bullying the weak Pietros. Once, when Spartacus was in trouble, only the kind-hearted Pietros had brought him water. Spartacus yells at Aeneas to stop.
Now!
Sadly, in Spartacus's absence, Pietros suffered countless times from Aeneas's violence and bullying, eventually choosing to hang himself. Unable to bear the humiliation, enraged upon learning this, Spartacus rushed up and brutally beat Aeneas.
Enough!
But Aeneas not only showed no remorse but even insulted Pietros. Spartacus, unable to bear it any longer, pushed Aeneas off a cliff in anger. Betrayal was furious upon knowing this. Pietros was just an insignificant slave, barely worth half a coin, while an excellent gladiator took a lot of money to train. Considering the upcoming match, Betrayal suppressed his anger and spared Spartacus. That night, Spartacus dreamed of his wife again. Sura was a believer in the gods, convinced that the hardships of life had their special meanings. When a great task is bestowed upon you, it will reveal itself in time. We only need to seek earnestly, and life will find its purpose. After waking from the dream, Spartacus finally let go and decided to follow his wife's faith and accept his fate. Spartacus handed the dagger to Betrayal, intending to live quietly as a gladiator from now on, and agreed to participate in the upcoming match. But Spartacus had one condition: he wanted to fight alone against 6.
6 that you'll want.
If this is the path the gods have truly set me upon, then they will not see me fall.
And if you are wrong?
Then I will give your city a great spectacle of blood before joining my wife.
As the duel began, Spartacus closed his eyes, calm and composed. The audience and the 6 gladiators were confused about his intentions. A gladiator threw a spear, but Spartacus remained unmoved. At that moment, Spartacus finally believed in fate, smiling fearlessly as he charged at the 6 gladiators. Due to the excessively gruesome scene, the details are omitted here. Finally, Spartacus, with all his might, managed to slay all his opponents. Seeing such astonishing combat skills, a surviving gladiator trembled with fear. As his opponent knelt before him, begging for mercy, Spartacus seemed to see his past self. Memories flashed before his eyes, and without hesitation, he decisively beheaded the man, symbolizing his farewell to the past. Some might not know that Spartacus was not his real name but one given by his master after he became a slave. At this moment, Spartacus finally shouted out this name.
I am Spartacus!